The letter said he was a good man. It said he owned land near Pincher Creek, that he had a daughter who needed looking after, and that he was not the kind of person who wrote letters easily but was trying anyway. Laurel Voss read it 3 times on the bus from Lethbridge, then folded it back along its crease and put it in her coat pocket, where she could feel it without having to look at it again. She was 26 years old, and she had spent the last 4 of those years doing things that made practical sense. She had taken the practical job and lived in the practical apartment and dated the practical man who in the end had not been practical enough to stay. When her aunt forwarded her the listing from a community board in Clarisholm, widower, rancher seeks reliable companion for daughter, ages 6 to 8 preferred, room and board included, Laurel had almost deleted it. Almost. She got off the bus in a town that looked like it had been set down carefully and then forgotten. One main street, a feed store, a church with a hand-painted sign, a woman in the diner who told her, without being asked, that the Callaway Road was 12 minutes north, if she kept left at the broken grain elevator. The man who picked her up was not the man she had been expecting. She had been expecting someone older, softer, maybe. Someone who looked like he needed help. The man who pulled up in the gray truck was tall, in a way that seemed deliberate, like he had decided at some point that taking up space was necessary and had committed to it. He didn't smile when she put her bag in the truck bed. He didn't say welcome. He said, "Road's worse after the bridge. Hold on to something." His name was Cole Drummond, and he drove like a man who had made this trip so many times the truck could probably do it alone. Laurel held on to the door handle and watched the landscape open up the way Alberta landscapes do. Suddenly, all at once, like someone pulling a curtain, she had grown up in the city. She understood traffic and transit maps and the particular loneliness of a crowded place. She did not understand this kind of space. It pressed against the windows and kept going. "Your daughter," she said, because someone had to say something. "What's her name?" Drummond kept his eyes on the road. "Ivy. How old is she?" 7. A pause. Laurel counted fence posts. "Does she know I'm coming?" "She knows someone's coming." He said it without inflection, not unkind, just precise. Like a man who had learned the cost of words and was spending them carefully. Laurel looked out at the prairie and thought about what it meant that a 7-year-old girl was waiting for someone without knowing who. Ivy Drummond had her father's precision and none of his silence. She was standing on the porch when the truck came up the lane, and she had clearly been standing there for a while because she had developed the particular stillness of a child who has learned how to wait. When Laurel stepped out, Ivy looked at her the way children look at things they're evaluating, directly, without pretending to be subtle. "Are you the one from Lethbridge?" "I am," Laurel said. "Dad said you were a teacher before. I taught grade 2. Ivy considered this. "I'm in grade 2, I know. That's probably why he picked you." Laurel almost smiled. Probably. Ivy went inside without another word, which felt like permission. The house was the kind of house that had been lived in for a long time, not messy, but full in a way that had nothing to do with clutter. Boots by the door in different sizes. A wall calendar still turned to March in the middle of April. A photo on the shelf above the radiator that Laurel didn't let herself look at directly. Cole Drummond showed her the room at the end of the hall, the bathroom, the kitchen where she was free to use whatever she needed. He told her Ivy's schedule. School at 8:15, home at 3:40, dinner at 6, bed at 8:30. He told her which drawer the first aid kit was in. He told her the name of the nearest hospital. He did not tell her anything about himself. "If you need something," he said from the doorway, "I'm usually in the barn by 5. There's a bell outside the back door." Laurel set her bag on the bed. "How long has it been?" she asked. "Since you had someone here to help." He was quiet long enough that she thought he wasn't going to answer. 14 months, he said. Then he left. She sat on the edge of the bed and listened to the house settle around her. Outside, the wind came off the foothills and pushed against the windows. Somewhere in the barn, something moved. Ivy's bedroom door, down the hall, clicked softly open and then closed again. Laurel put her hands in her lap and looked at the wall and thought, "What have you done?" She found her rhythm in small things, the way you do when a large thing is too much to understand all at once. She learned that Ivy ate her toast with butter on one half and nothing on the other, that she liked the radio on in the morning, but not after noon, that she had a specific hatred for the word moist, and would leave the room if anyone said it. She learned that Ivy talked constantly until she didn't, and that the silence was never neutral. It always meant something. You just had to learn which kind it was. She learned that Cole Drummond came in from the barn at 6:15 if things went well and later if they didn't. That he washed his hands twice before dinner. That he sat at the head of the table, not because he needed to be important, but because it was the chair furthest from the window that got the afternoon glare. That he listened to Ivy's school stories with his whole attention in a way that was almost startling. Most adults listen to children the way they listen to weather reports, with one ear, waiting for something relevant. Cole listened like it cost him nothing. Laurel found this confusing. She had built a version of him in her head on the bus from Lethbridge, reserved, a little shut down, the kind of man who hired people because connecting was difficult. That version was partly right. But there was something underneath it that the version didn't account for. Something quiet and watchful and, she was beginning to think, deeply patient. It was Ivy who told her, 3 weeks in, the thing she probably should have known already. They were doing homework at the kitchen table, long division. Ivy had a particular grievance against long division that she expressed through sighing. Dad doesn't like it when people feel sorry for him, Ivy said, without looking up from her worksheet. Laurel kept her voice even. Why would people feel sorry for him? Ivy looked up. She had the expression of a child who could not believe the adults in her life needed this much explaining. Because of Mom, right, she didn't leave, Ivy said. She got sick, that's different. She returned to her worksheet. Some people treat it the same and he doesn't like that. Laurel made a note to herself, filed in the same place she filed things that mattered. I'll keep that in mind, she said. You already don't do it, Ivy said. I've been watching. Have you? Yeah. A pause. You treat him like a normal person. He notices. Laurel looked at her worksheet and not at the girl beside her. Division, she said. Let's get back to it. It was a Tuesday when things shifted. Not dramatically. Not the way things shifted in stories, with weather and revelation. It was a Tuesday in the ordinary way. Cold for May, the sky doing that thing it did in southern Alberta, where the clouds came in from the mountains and stacked up like they had somewhere to be. Laurel had been in the barn looking for the extra extension cord Cole had mentioned, and she had gotten turned around between the workshop and the tack room. And when she pushed open a door that turned out to be the wrong door, she found Cole Drummond sitting on an overturned crate in the corner reading a letter. He folded it when he heard her, fast, not embarrassed exactly, but private. Wrong door, she said, workshop's next one over. She should have left. She started to. Then she stopped, because something in the way he was holding that letter, not hiding it, just holding it against his knee like it was ordinary and heavy at the same time, was not something she could just walk away from without noticing. You don't have to do that, she said. He looked at her. Whatever you're doing, she said, you don't have to stop because I came in the wrong door. Cole looked down at the letter, then at the crate across from him, where no one was sitting. He didn't say sit down. He didn't say anything. But he didn't fold the letter again either. Laurel sat down on the crate across from him. Outside, the wind moved through the grass. A horse shifted in its stall. The barn held the particular quiet that barns hold. Not empty, not still, just patient. It's from her sister, Cole said finally. She writes every couple of months. Wants to see Ivy. That seems reasonable. It is. He set the letter on his knee. She also wants to know if I'm managing. That's what she calls it. Managing. Laurel didn't say anything. She had learned with Cole that silence was not a gap to be filled. I don't know how to answer that, he said. What does managing mean? I get up. I work the land. Ivy's fed and clothed and she laughs at things, which means she's okay. But managing. He stopped. Managing implies you're getting by, Laurel said. Just barely. He looked at her. Something in his expression shifted, almost imperceptibly, like a door opening a half inch. Yeah, he said. Maybe just say we're doing well, she said. Because you are. Ivy is. She paused. You are. He didn't answer right away. He looked at the letter, then out at the barn, then at her. You've been here 5 weeks, he said. I know. You don't have to. I know that too. Another silence, longer this time. But not uncomfortable. That was the thing she was only beginning to understand about Cole Drummond. His silences didn't push people away. They just waited to see who would stay in them. Laurel stayed. The trouble arrived in the form of a woman named Diane, who drove up the lane on a Saturday in a clean city car and wore the expression of someone who had decided before getting out of the vehicle what she was going to think. Diane was Cole's mother-in-law. Not unfriendly, but purposeful in a way that made Laurel feel like a variable in an equation someone else was solving. She brought a casserole, and she hugged Ivy for a long time, and she sat at the kitchen table and watched Laurel with the patient attention of someone building a case. "You've been here almost 2 months," she said to Laurel, while Cole was outside showing Ivy something about the fence line. "About that," Laurel said. "And how is it?" "Good. Ivy's. She's a wonderful kid." Diane looked at her coffee cup. "She's had a difficult time." "She has," Laurel agreed. "She's also resilient. She talks about her mum sometimes, clearly and without fear. That's not an accident, that's because of how she was raised." Diane looked up. Something in her face recalibrated slightly. Not warmly, but honestly. "Cole's not easy," she said. "He's not complicated either," Laurel said. "He's just careful." Diane studied her for a moment. Then she said something Laurel hadn't been prepared for. "She would have liked you, I think, my daughter. She liked people who told the truth sideways." Laurel looked out the window at Cole and Ivy, at the particular way he crouched down to show Ivy something on the fence post, the patience of it. "I'm not trying to replace anything," she said. "I know," Diane said, and she sounded like she actually did. The complication came 2 weeks later, and it came from a direction Laurel hadn't been watching. Her sister called from Lethbridge. Her sister, Paige, who was practical in a different way than Laurel. Sharper, faster, the kind of person who made decisions the way other people pulled off bandages. Paige had found a position, a teaching position, real and full-time, at a school in Canmore starting in September. "I told them you were interested," Paige said. "You told them." "I told them you were interested." Laurel stood in the kitchen, the house quiet around her because Ivy was at school and Cole was somewhere on the north field. She looked at the wall calendar, now turned to June. At the photo on the shelf she had stopped not looking at, which showed a woman with Cole's same precision in her expression and Ivy's brightness around the eyes. "Paige," she said. "It's a real job, Laurel. You can't just... I'm not just doing anything." A pause. "How long are you going to stay?" Paige asked. Laurel didn't answer right away. She looked at the calendar, at the photo, at the stack of Ivy's books on the table where they'd been working through long division with now considerably less sighing. "I don't know," she said, which was true, and also not what she meant at all. That evening, after Ivy was in bed, Cole came inside and found Laurel at the kitchen table with a cup of tea gone cold in front of her. He stopped in the doorway, read the situation the way he read most things, quietly, without rushing. "You don't have to tell me," he said. "My sister found a job for me," she said. "In Canmore, starting in September." He went to the counter and poured himself a glass of water. She watched him and tried to read his back, which gave very little away. "Is it a good job?" he asked. "Yes." He turned around. He leaned against the counter. He looked at her with the steady, unhurried attention that she had stopped finding unnerving 6 weeks ago. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "Not what are you going to do, not what makes sense. What do you want?" "I don't know," she said, which had been true for a long time before tonight. Cole set down his glass. He came to the table, and he sat across from her, and he folded his hands the way he did when he was about to say something he'd thought through. "I've been meaning to ask you something," he said. She waited. "Not about the job," he said. "Not about September." He looked at her directly, and there was nothing guarded in it. "I've been meaning to ask you to stay, not because of Ivy." Because stopped. Reorganized. "Because of mornings," he said finally, "and because you told me we were doing well, and because the house has been..." He stopped again. "Different," Laurel offered. "Yeah," he said. "Different." She looked at him across the table, at his hands, folded, at his expression, which was doing something careful and also something that had stopped being careful. "That's the worst romantic speech I've ever heard," she said. Something moved at the corner of his mouth. "I know, you couldn't mention that I'm good with Ivy, or that you like talking to me, or, I like talking to you," he said, "more than I've liked talking to anyone in a long time. I like that you don't feel sorry for me. I like that you told Ivy the truth about long division, which is that it's terrible and you have to learn it anyway." He paused. "I like that you stayed in the barn." Laurel was quiet. "I'm not asking you to stay forever," he said. "I'm asking you to stay long enough to find out if you want to." Outside, the wind moved through the foothills. The horses were quiet. The house held the particular silence of a thing that was waiting to see what happened next. "I would need," Laurel said slowly, "to call Paige, okay, and I would need you to tell Ivy yourself that I'm staying. Because she'll want to hear it from you." Okay, he said again. And I reserve the right, she said, to still hate long division. That's fair, Cole said. She looked at him. He looked at her. And something settled between them that was not a promise and not a guarantee, but was solid in the way that true things are solid, not perfect, not finished, just real. She called Paige the next morning. Paige said, "Are you serious?" 3 times, and then, eventually, okay. Cole told Ivy at breakfast, and Ivy took the information with the same direct evaluation she had offered on the porch the first day. I already knew, Ivy said. You didn't know, Cole said. I suspected. She picked up her toast. I've been watching. And outside the window, the Alberta sky did what it did in June, opened up, finally, past the mountains, wide and unhurried and completely indifferent to whether any of this was convenient. Laurel looked at it from the kitchen table and thought that she had spent 4 years making practical choices and that this one, this messy and uncertain and poorly timed choice, felt more like herself than anything she could remember. Ivy reached over and stole a corner of her toast. "Hey," Laurel said. "You weren't eating it," Ivy said. Cole poured more coffee and said nothing, and was, Laurel noticed, not even trying to hide that he was smiling.